Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu brings down the house with his incredible speech and also reveals the house of cards that Obama has built regarding Iran. I'm Randall Terry. This is Voice of Resistance.
Those who forsake the law praise the wicked. Those who uphold the law resist them. Welcome to the Voice of Resistance. Here's your host, Randall Terry.
Welcome to the broadcast, friend. We will spend the next 2 or 3 episodes talking quite a bit about Netanyahu's speech before the joint session of Congress, primarily focusing on it because of the threat that Iran poses to the entire world. Now, my hope is that I will look at various aspects of the speech, and perhaps more importantly, various aspects of the conflict between Shiites and Sunnis in such a way that you leave these shows with more than you got when you started. All right? Now, I have to tell you, I was sitting there with my wife and sons, and we were watching him walk in. Ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister of Israel, His Excellency Benjamin Netanyahu. And you can see some of the footage of it here. And I was actually shocked by the warmth of the greeting he got. And you know that there's going to be a lot of people, the talking heads are going to be discussing how the length of time he's taking to walk down, the number of people wanting to shake his hand, the volume, the sheer volume of the thunderous applause. One of our staff and I were talking and said, is it just our imagination, or did it seem louder than when President Obama made his recent State of the Union address? So that'll all be the stuff of talking heads over the next couple of days. I want to focus on a couple other things, just so that you know it is not that unusual for a foreign head of state or a foreign dignitary to speak to a joint session. Take a look at this graph that was provided by the House of Representatives. For example, the president of the Ukraine spoke to a joint session in September of 2014. The president of Korea, that would be South Korea, spoke in May of 13. In October of 11, the president of Korea, the different president at that time, again spoke to a joint session. Netanyahu spoke in May of 2011. So you can see, going down that list, all the way back to 1991, when Her Majesty the Queen of England, spoke to the joint session of Congress, and further back it goes. Of course, one of the most famous speeches made before Congress was the Iron Curtain speech made by the former Prime Minister of England, Winston Spencer Churchill. After the Second World War ended, Churchill came, did a large tour with President Truman, smoking cigars, drinking bourbon or whatever it was, and he did make a speech in front of the joint session. In fact, I want to just play this one clip. It was funny, and I thought it was a little bit audacious, but go ahead, roll it.
I cannot help reflecting that if my father had been American and my mother British, instead of the other way around, I might have got here on my own.
So there you have it. By the way, the reason he made that joke was because his mom was an American and his dad was English. His point was that if his dad had been English, an English aristocrat, and his mom had been a wealthy English woman, maybe he would have been the president. Brought down the house at that time with a good laugh. All right, the thing that I want to discuss with you to open this program, and the reason that I referenced Winston Spencer Churchill, is because this may be Netanyahu's Churchillian moment. And it may be the moment in time when President Obama is the aggregate of English Prime Ministers Chamberlain, Baldwin, and MacDonald, all of them. Now, for those of you who don't know that history, I'm going to take a quick break, and I have a surprise I want to show you when we come back. What is in this? I'm going to show you. It's actually a pretty incredible piece of history. You know what we should do? We should offer this for a gift of $5,000 or $10,000 and buy that thing that we need for the studio. I'll be right back.
My friends, I'm deeply humbled by the opportunity to speak for a third time before the most important legislative body in the world, the U.S. Congress. I want to thank you all for being here today. I know that my speech has been the subject of much controversy. I deeply regret that some perceive my being here as political. That was never my intention.
Hey, everyone's been asking me, when's Unstoppable coming out on DVD? Well, it's here. And I have created my own deluxe signature version of Unstoppable that contains not only the movie, but over 5 hours of additional curriculum and study guides for your family. It's perfect for your homeschool, educational facility, small group Bible study, and family devotions. And I'm going to share with you some of the spiritual warfare that surrounded the release of this film. This box set also includes extended scenes, new music videos, the inside scoop on the whole Facebook controversy. So what are you waiting for? I made this special version with my family in mind, and I know your family will be blessed by it too. Unstoppable 2.0 Deluxe Signature Version, available only here at KurtCameron.com. I can't wait for you to experience what's inside.
My friends, I've come here today because as Prime Minister of Israel, I feel a profound obligation to speak to you about an issue that could well threaten the survival of my country and the future of my people: Iran's quest for nuclear weapons. We're an ancient people. In our nearly 4,000 years of history, many have tried repeatedly to destroy the Jewish people.
I am a Churchill file, a Churchill lover. This man, in my opinion, was the most towering figure of the entire 20th century. In many aspects, he saved Europe from Nazism. I have a relative named after Winston Churchill. By the way, I tell men all the time, women too for that matter, but men especially, that the single most important book that you can read if you are a Christian leader, or if you aspire to be a Christian leader, in any realm, politics, judiciary, commerce, activism, whatever. The single most important book that you can read, in my opinion, after the scriptures is this book, The Last Lion Alone by William Manchester. It is the second volume of a 3-volume set. I would heartily encourage you to get all 3 volumes, but especially get the second volume. And you can read the second volume freestanding. And it's Churchill's wilderness years from 1932 to 1940. And I want to talk to you a minute about that. In fact, you know what I'll do? I will use this as the backdrop. I told you I had something I wanted to show you. Lane, we need to get a close-up of this, please. So here is this. Now look at that closely, right? You see you've got Stanley Baldwin. Who was Stanley Baldwin? Stanley Baldwin was the Prime Minister of England from about 35 to 37. In fact, he was Prime Minister until June of 1937. And look at the date underneath Winston Churchill's name. All right? And by the way, that is a confirmed signature of Winston Spencer Churchill. This book was purchased and given to me as a gift. It's actually a collection of very famous autographs from people from England. The most famous two are Winston Churchill and Stanley Baldwin. Now, the reason this is so poetic and frankly incredible, there are a lot of collectors around the world that would love to have this exact autograph book, is because at that time, Baldwin was prime minister. Churchill was a backbencher in Parliament, was being scoffed at, ridiculed in the press. The BBC had decided that they were going to, it was right at that time that the BBC said they're not going to carry any more of Churchill's speeches. There were newspapers that either wouldn't cover him or would ignore, would slight him with their coverage of his speeches. Here's why this is critical. I said to you that Churchill was in a large way responsible for saving Europe from Nazism. And Prime Ministers MacDonald, Baldwin, and Chamberlain, they paved the way for the Nazis to become strong. Listen to this. The largest trading partner economically with Germany prior to World War II was England. England. And guess what the largest single export was from England to Germany, according to one book that I read? Guess what it was? Scrap metal. Scrap metal. The Germans just stamped return to sender on it in the form of V-2 rockets and Stuka fighter bombers and bombs that they were dropping over London. Chamberlain said of Hitler, "I felt that here was a man that I could trust." Netanyahu is laying out his argument before the world, not just before a joint session of Congress, but before the world, in effect saying that President Obama is making the same type of fatal error that Prime Ministers MacDonald, Baldwin, and Chamberlain did in England with Germany in the 1930s. You see, the English and the French had a duty, according to the Treaty of Versailles, to keep Germany from rearming. If the English had done their duty, there would not have been a World War II. Did you know that? I've got to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll show you another clip of Netanyahu's speech, and I'm going to tell you a couple of quick facts about World War II so that you can, again, make the comparison. Obama is today's Chamberlain. Netanyahu, at least in this circumstance, may be today's Churchill. Does our Lord Jesus Christ, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, have authority in the political realm, the judicial realm, economics, education? The answer is yes. And does he want his servants to be the leaders in those realms? Again, yes. If you want to learn how you can be a leader in the power bases of America, get the series, Taking Back the Gates.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've come here today to tell you we don't have to bet the security of the world on the hope that Iran will change for the better. We don't have to gamble with our future and with our children's future. We can insist that restrictions on Iran's nuclear program not be lifted for as long as Iran continues its aggression in the region and in the world.
Well, he's making the argument, and Winston Churchill made the argument, like Netanyahu is today. Netanyahu is saying we've got to hem Iran in and we've got to keep them from arming, that the greatest threat to the world is a nuclear-armed Islamic regime, a militant Islamic regime, because they'll use the weapon. And for Netanyahu and the Israelis, this is not some scholastic debate. They're right there, okay? They're right there. And Iran could easily, in a flash, kill millions of Jews and decimate the whole nation of Israel. Whether they would do that, we don't know for sure, but the history of Islam would indicate that they would. That's the issue. Because the goal of Islam, the stated goal of Islam, is to bring Islam and Sharia law to rule over the whole earth. Let's go back to the 30s. If the English had done their duty, there never would have been a World War II. The French and the English, but especially the French in this one, look at this swath of land called the Rhineland. It was a 30-mile buffer zone that was created after World War I, and it was a demilitarized zone. It was there to say that Germans may not be in this area ever with an army. And should they ever try and occupy it, it would be considered as an act of war, an act of aggression. One of the first brazen things Germany did was march 100,000 poorly armed and poorly trained men into the Rhineland. And the French and the English looked at each other and said, what do we do? What do we do? And they didn't want to go in. What they were supposed to do is they're supposed to roll in with military and expel them. They didn't want to do it. But guess what? The German generals, and that was not supposed to happen either. There was not supposed to be a general staff in Germany. But the French and the English allowed that to happen under the watch of British prime ministers. So anyway, the Rhineland was taken, and there were generals in Germany who had a plot to have Hitler deposed and arrested. They were going to arrest Hitler because of his order to march into the Rhineland, because it was an illegal order. Fast forward to the crisis at the Sudetenland. Look at this swath. This is the real estate that Hitler took in 1938, the fall of 1938, with the permission of the Prime Minister of England. The Czechoslovakia at that time had some of the heaviest armaments in the world and some of the best positions for their cannons. There are many military experts that believe that the Czechs could have actually repulsed the Nazis on their own. It's possible that they could have because of their position. But the cowardice of Chamberlain prevailed. And when Hitler got the Sudetenland, and when he got the Rhineland, and when he got Austria, and then he made his move on Poland, by then it was too late. By then, the bad guys in Germany had been developing the armaments that they needed and were going to be ready to wage an incredible war against all of Europe, no matter what England and France did. And as we know, France fell shortly thereafter. But all of that happened because of the neglect of English prime ministers. And just as there was a plot to arrest Hitler when they moved into the Rhineland, there was a plot to arrest Hitler if the crisis with the Sudetenland failed. The German generals were going to arrest him. If the English prime ministers, Baldwin and really Chamberlain, the bulk of this does fall on Chamberlain and Baldwin as well, if they had lifted one finger to execute their duty, World War II would have been averted. Their duty was to keep Germany from arming. And that's Netanyahu's argument, that the duty of America and the free world is to keep Iran from being armed with a nuclear weapon. I could not agree more. This could be Netanyahu's Churchill moment, and it's certainly Obama's Chamberlain moment. God save us. I have been a leader in the pro-life movement for 30 years, and sadly we have not prevailed in our goal to make it a criminal act to kill an unborn baby. There's reasons why we have failed. I wrote this book, A Humble Plea, to Catholic bishops, to evangelical clergy, and to lay people, explaining where we went wrong and what we have to do to prevail. We've made this available as a PDF online for free. I encourage you to go and download your own copy.
But I can guarantee you this: the days when the Jewish people remain passive in the face of genocidal enemies, those days are over. Even if Israel has to stand alone, Israel will stand. Overlooking all of us in this august chamber is the image of Moses. Moses led our people from slavery to the gates of the Promised Land. And before the people of Israel entered the land of Israel, Moses gave us a message that has steeled our resolve for thousands of years. I leave you with his message today. Chizku v'imtzu, al tiru ve'al ta'artzu mipnehem. Be strong and resolute, neither fear nor dread them. My friends, may Israel and America always stand together, strong and resolute. May we neither fear nor dread the challenges ahead. May we face the future with confidence, strength, and hope. May God bless the state of Israel, and may God bless the United States of America.
The genius of him referring to Moses on our own congressional wall. We will look at various aspects of this speech over the next couple of days. There are people who are already asking, wasn't Netanyahu born in Hawaii? Doesn't he have a birth certificate? No, he wasn't born in Hawaii, and no, he can't run for president in the United States of America. We're stuck with who we have right now until the next election. The question is, will Israel have to go it alone? Will they? Will they have to use military force to disable the nuclear facilities in Iran like they blew up the nuclear facility in Iraq? We need to thank God and thank Menachem Begin, the Prime Minister of Israel, who ordered the attack in 1981. Because we might have faced a nuclear-armed Iraq if they had not destroyed that facility. Because Saddam Hussein was going to build nuclear weapons. There's no question about it. All right, listen to me. I have a personal plea to you. This program is bringing truth, the historic truth of Orthodox Islam, fundamentalist Islam, in a way that very few, if any, regular TV shows are doing in America. We hear from viewers all the time who are so thankful for the research that I did for my master's degree on Islamic terrorism, on Muhammad, on the origins of Islam, and what they did to conquer most of the Middle East. We are going to reshoot our series called What Would Muhammad Do? We're going to reshoot it, and we're going to have new details, new data from ISIS, from Al-Qaeda. And friend, we need to purchase 2 teleprompters to do it. There's just too many details for me to do it from the hip. I've got to be able to read a teleprompter, I'm being honest. The teleprompters that we need, 2 of them will cost about $3,000. They're not super high-end, but they're decent. I'm asking you to go to our website, or if you're the type of person that can buy the whole thing, contact me. Or go to the website, make a $500 or $1,000 contribution, or send it in the mail at the address that you see. But we need to get these teleprompters now so that we can bring the nation the truth about Islam. Please help us.
Mm-hmm.